Okay, boys and girls, we are getting ready to take the post-assessment for our unit of study in reading the weather and reading the world. And if you remember the assessments that we took for reading history, you'll know that we've been working on a standard for summarizing. And throughout the unit, we have covered different parts to the steps in order to summarize an article that we've read or a video that we've watched. And so today, they kind of call this lesson a summary boot camp. It's not set up as a traditional mini lesson that we normally take. It's a much more guided practice. And so I wanted to start by having you glue this paper into your notebook so that you have a chart that you can look back at. When you take the post test for reading the weather, reading the world, you're going to have to write a summary. And so one of the questions is going to ask you to read an article and then to provide a summary. And I wanted to give you a step-by-step approach for writing a good summary. These pieces we've already learned about individually, but now we're going to put them all together in a process. Okay. Obviously, step one is to read the text. But while you're reading the text, you want to be thinking about a couple of different things. First of all, you want to be taking a look at the way that the article is structured. Now, from what we've learned in third grade and what we've reviewed here in fourth grade about the different types of nonfiction text features, we know that articles can be separated into sections using headings. That the headings can sometimes be tricky because they might be cute and might not give us a full picture of what the section is about, but generally the heading is supposed to be giving the reader an idea of what that section is going to be talking about, what the focus is going to be. So one of the things that you can use when you're thinking about and reading a text is to use the headings in the article to separate the text into sections. And another thing that we've talked about a lot is annotating the text. Now remember, when you're annotating the text, you're writing. You're jotting down notes in the white space. Excuse me. You're putting down information. Like, what is this section talking about? What is important for me to know here? What is new information that I'm learning? And then the fourth one is to identify the text structure. Now, the text structure might vary from section to section in your article. Remember the lesson that we had where we watched the video about the animals that were in the Phoenix Zoo? And we talked about how knowing the text structure or identifying the text structure can often help us to identify the things that are important in the text, which is step 5. So a lot of things to do before you even begin to write a summary. Read the text. Think about how you could divide that text into sections. Jot notes in the white space. Identify the text structure. And then use that text structure to determine the things that are important. So let's take a look, and if you were able to find your copy, great. If you can't, you can look up here on the screen. Let's take a look at this article called Kid Power from our test that we took on the American Revolution, reading history. Now it says to summarize the article Kid Power. So let's take a look at Kid Power and let's read it together. Now the first thing I'm noticing about this text is that there are no headings. There are no headings in this text, so I really can't use the headings to help me to separate this article into sections. I'm going to have to rely on my abilities as a reader. I'm going to have to think about what I know as a reader and notice when the focus changes or shifts. All right, Kid power. The famous scientist Albert Einstein said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." Einstein believed that it is very important for people to imagine and to create. Even young people can make amazing creations. Okay, now think about what you know about writing. And when you think about the different parts of the article, what might this part be? What might this part be? Oliver? The hook, okay? A quote from Albert Einstein about what he said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." Think about that. You don't hear that very often. All right, so let's read on. Kane Monroe is one such boy. All right, so as a reader, I'm thinking to myself, first of all, I'm going to divide right here, and I'm going to say this is a hook. This is the hook. This is part of the introduction. And I'm also going to notice that now we're talking about an example. Okay? An example of something that goes along with the quote, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." Kane Monroe is one such boy. When he was 9 years old, Kane built a giant arcade out of cardboard boxes. Remember we saw that video with Miss Branham?
Yeah.
In his dad's auto parts store. Kane worked all summer to make his arcade so that it looked like a real arcade. He made booths that each held a game. In one game, people used a hook to pick up a stuffed animal. Kane also found a way for people to get tickets when they won his games, just like they do at real arcades. After Kane made his arcade, he couldn't wait for the crowds of people to show up to enjoy his creation. But Kane's arcade didn't have a single customer. Kane was so sad, but he didn't give up. No way. Creative people don't just give up when things get hard. Instead, Kane just kept working to make his arcade better and better. Then one day, a man named Nirvan Mullick came by and decided to play at Kane's arcade. Kane showed him all of the games and sold him a fun pass so Mullick could play more games. Mullick was a filmmaker. He was so impressed that he decided to make a film about Kane's arcade. He used the internet to invite tons of people to come play at Kane's arcade. Soon the arcade was crowded and Kane was so happy. The film about Kane's arcade inspired the global cardboard challenge that gets kids all over the world to follow Kane's example and be creative. So far, more than 225,000 kids in 60 countries have taken part. 15-year-old Anne Makosinski also used creativity to make something special. Okay, so as a reader, I'm noticing, whoa, wait a minute. We're done talking about Kane, and now we're going to start talking about someone named Anne. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to call that a section. The section about Kane is going to be a piece, okay? So a piece of my article. I'm going to divide it into sections. Remember that? I can't use headings this time. So what was this section about? What can I write in the white space? It's an example of what? Sawyer? Say it again. I couldn't hear you. Well, what is the article about? Alexander, can you help him out?
It's about Kane making an arcade.
It is about Kane making an arcade in this section. How does that relate to what the main idea is?
He used his imagination to make it.
Okay, so Kane used his imagination I'm going to put / creativity. And the reason why, notice what they said here at the beginning of this section. 15-year-old Anne Makosinski also used creativity to make something special. So just by that, I'm going to say that they talked about Cain used his imagination / creativity to make an arcade. And what did he make it out of? Cardboard. So it seems to me as a reader that I'm starting to think that this whole article is about, relates back to the quote, right? Imagination or creativity, okay? What is this article going to say about imagination or creativity? Okay, but that's the focus. All right, as I continue to read, I will identify more about the main idea. All right, so let's read about Anne. 15-year-old Anne Makosinski also used creativity to make something special. Anne has a friend who lives far away in the Philippines. Her friend couldn't do her homework because her home had no electricity and it had no lights at night. Anne worked and worked, and finally she designed a flashlight that could light up without electricity or batteries. The flashlight used the warmth of her hand as a source of power. Anne won a top prize and appeared on TV news shows, but she hasn't stopped. She is trying now to make her flashlights brighter. William Tao Kwamba. All right, so now we're talking about a new person. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line across here and call this another section. So let's go back. This section about Anne is an example. It is an example of what? It's an example of what? What can I write in the white space, Anthony, about Anne? What about it? Okay. Anne used her. Okay. To do what?
To make a flashlight.
Why is that important? Say it again, please. I didn't hear you. It does relate to the article, but more importantly, think about it. We have Anne used her imagination to create a flashlight. Alexander?
That doesn't use electricity or batteries.
Okay, why is that important? What did it do? Why is it important to have something that has lights? Try to be specific. Brady?
Because her friend didn't have electricity, so she couldn't do her homework.
Okay.
She needed something without electricity to light.
Okay, so it definitely solved a problem, right? It solved a major problem. Can you see how using your imagination and your creativity can help solve a problem that somebody has? Okay, so we have some examples here. Imagination and creativity was able to, Cain was able to make an arcade so that people could have fun. Anne was able to create a flashlight so that her friend, who had no electricity and no batteries, no light, could do her homework. Okay, so now we're going to read about William. William Kim Kwaba lived in a small village in Malawi, a country in Africa. William's parents, like many of the people in his country, were farmers. The only food they had to eat was the food they grew. When William was 14, there was a terrible drought in the country. No rain came, the crops couldn't grow. His family had no food or money. William had to quit school because his parents did not have enough money to pay for it. he still wanted to learn, so he went to the library to read books. One day, he read that windmills can create power from the wind. William thought, if I can make a windmill, I might be able to light up our home and to pump water for the crops. William knew that if he could make a windmill, his family would not have to depend so much on the rain. It was not easy for William to make a windmill. He had to go to a scrapyard to get many of the parts he needed. People said he was wasting his time. The first time he tried to get the windmill to power his father's radio, smoke poured out of the radio. But William didn't give up. He kept on reading science books and trying to make his windmill work. Then one day, William's windmill worked. His machine lit a light bulb. People were amazed. But William didn't just sit back and celebrate. Instead, he studied his windmill and realized it didn't yet work perfectly. If the wind blew too hard, the windmill sometimes broke, and the windmill couldn't yet pump water. William worked, and finally, he built another windmill. This time his windmill pumped water into his mother's vegetable garden. The family could grow more vegetables, and as news about William's windmill spread, donors offered to pay for him to return to school. Being creative and building new things is not always easy. Okay, as a reader, I'm noticing that this shifted again, so I'm going to go ahead and separate this into another section. So we have a whole section about William, and William's story is another example. It's another example of what? What have we been talking about? It's another example. Aiden?
Imagination and creativity.
Okay, so what did William do? Yes.
Okay.
William used his,
Imagination
okay,
to create a windmill.
okay. That did what?
It pumped water and created electricity.
So it pumped water for the family's crops and provided electricity. It lit a light bulb, remember? Both important things for their family. Can you imagine what that must be like? How lucky we are that when we press the button and our lights come on automatically. There are countries and there are people in this world who don't have that. Okay, so this is an example, another example of using imagination and creativity, not necessarily knowledge. Okay, so let's go back to what we know. What part are we entering into? Besides the fact that we recognize that this is the end, what part of the article are we entering into? Diviana? The conclusion. Okay, this isn't an essay, but this is a conclusion. Be creative and building new things is not always easy. It may take many tries to make an invention that works. It may take months or even years before you get your design the way you want it. Other people might tell you your ideas will not work. But if you believe in your ideas, it is important to keep working on your design or invention. Kids who are creative are powerful. Kids who are creative can change the world. Okay, so let's go back and think about the main idea of this article. It's called Kid Power, and it begins in the introduction or the hook by saying imagination is more important than knowledge. Okay, and then we had examples, right? We had an example of Cain, who used his creativity and imagination to create an arcade so that people could have fun playing games. Then we had Anne, who used her imagination and creativity to make a flashlight that would help her friend in the Philippines be able to have light so that she could see and power. Then we had an example of William, who worked really hard to help his family, and he created a windmill that would pump water and give them electricity. And then we had our conclusion, which talked about working hard and keep trying and how powerful kids can be. Okay, so what would you say might be the main idea of this article? Think about it for a second. Why don't you go ahead and turn and talk and share what you think with a partner. Okay, so let's go ahead and share. What do you think the author's main idea was for this article? What do you think, Jalen? Okay, so that sounds like two main ideas to me. Okay, listen to what Jalen said. To use your imagination and your creativity and to not give up, right? Does everybody see that sounds like two main ideas? Do you think this article had two main ideas? Could you support it with evidence? Yes, you could. So, Jalen, that was very brilliant of you. There are two main ideas in this. At the very beginning, if you look at this introduction, what is the author saying about imagination and creativity? Aiden?
They're powerful.
Okay. It says that the famous scientist Albert Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. Einstein believed that it is very important for people to imagine and to create. Even young people can make amazing creations. So what is the main idea? If you're reading this part, what is the main idea? Well, what does it say in the text? I see that you're making those connections, definitely. But what is it actually saying in the text? We need to stay with the text. Alexander?
If you use your imagination and creativity, you can make amazing stuff.
Okay, so using your imagination and creativity. Do you remember the rest of what you said?
You can make amazing stuff.
Okay. Not just you. When you say you, who are you talking to?
Everyone.
Well, what does it say in the article, though? Who are they talking to? Young people, right? What is the title? Young people or kids can make amazing things, right? Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Who said no? Somebody say no? Okay, I just want to make sure everybody understands. Okay, and then if we go, though, to the end and look at the conclusion, being creative and building new things is not always easy. It may take many tries to make an invention that works. It may take months or even years before you get your design the way you want it. Other people might tell you your ideas will not work. But if you believe in your ideas, it is important to keep working on your design or invention. Kids who are creative are powerful. Kids who are creative can change the world. So, we found information about the first main idea, that kids or young people who use their imagination and creativity can make amazing things. What can we say by focusing on this part? What is the author trying to say here? Turn and talk with a partner. What is the author trying to say here? Okay, so let's go ahead and share what you had a conversation with. Zachary, what were you having a conversation about? Okay, now, but that was what we talked about earlier from the introduction. Remember Jalen identified that this article actually has two different main ideas. That refers back to the first one. What about the second main idea that she mentioned? Adrian?
It's like always persevere, never give up.
Okay, so you're saying to do what? Persevere? Okay. When are they specifically talking about persevering? Yes, I know, but when doing what? Okay, so when doing what?
When designing and using your imagination. Designing and inventing.
Okay, but you can say that it works when using your imagination and creativity to design and invent things. What? Persevere. Persevere. Why?
Because it's hard to do. And people will tell you it sucks, but you just have to keep trying and never give up. You should keep going.
Okay, so when you keep going though, what are you doing?
You're not persevering.
Well, you are, but what are you physically doing with your? Think about the book that we read, The Most Magnificent Thing. You are working hard, but what are you doing?
You are thinking.
Yes, you are thinking. Maybe we need to just kind of be more specific. When you're creating an invention, when you're inventing or designing, and things do not go well, and you're persevering to do what? What are you going to do?
Oh,
What are you going to do? You are going to keep working. That's what persevere means. But you're not going to just keep doing the same thing all the time, right?
You're going to try new stuff.
Okay, so you're going to revise, and you're going to improve. You're going to try to make things better and better. Okay? So you're not just going to keep working. You're going to keep trying. You're going to keep revising. Okay, so we can see that this article has two main ideas, right? All right, so let's stop for a second and let's think about the text structure. How was this article written? Think about what you know about text structure. We have cause and effect. We have problem solution. We have chronological order. We have description. What's the other one? Compare and contrast. Thank you. Very nice. Compare and contrast, problem solution. Okay. Cause and effect, description, and chronological order. What is this one?
No.
Now, remember when we're identifying text structure, what we learned, we're looking for specific keywords, right? So we would see problem, solution, we would see cause and effect, we would see those kinds of words, all right? So we would say first, then, last for chronological order. All right, so what is this one? What is this one? Okay, there's some of you I haven't heard from. What is the text structure of this article? Carter, what do you think?
I think the text structure of that article is not
You're talking about the main idea. You're not talking. Text structure, guys, remember, text structure is the way the information is organized and presented to you. Mariah.
Oh my
Now, was that an option?
What's he saying?
It wasn't an option. Sophia, where did you see words like problem and solution? To solve this problem, did you see that anywhere? No. Alexander? So you saw because of this, as a result? Okay, now this is where a lot of you have problems because you are thinking about the content, not the way it's presented. I can present any information using any of those text structures. Adrian? It's description. Because we have examples, right? It's describing specific examples. Okay, so one of the parts of this standard is, remember, we identify what's important by noting the text structure. Okay, and we know that what's important are the general examples. Now, not only did we have examples of children using their creativity and imagination to make amazing things, but we also have examples of kids who were able to continue to persevere, to revise their thinking and their inventions until they reached success. They persevered, right? So when we're thinking about writing our summary, let's go back to our chart that is in our notebooks. So we've read the text, we've divided the text into sections. We've jotted notes in the white space. What is this section about? We've identified the text structure. Now, we know that the text structure is description. So we're going to use what we know about this text structure to get ready to write our summary. So in your notebook, on the left-hand side, since you glued this on the right-hand side, we're going to work together to write a summary. Okay, so look at your chart for a second. Excuse me. Look at your chart for a second. It says we're going to write our first part of our summary. Our first sentence is going to clearly introduce excuse me, the title and the author. Now, the title of this article, and you're going to want to write this in your notebook, and it's an article, so it gets quotated, gets quotation marks, in Kid Power. Nope, it's an article. You underline a book title, but you put quotation marks around the title of an article. Anthony, did you get this in your notebook? Zachary, did you get this in your notebook? You're going to want to have an example because when you take your assessment, you'll be able to open up your notebook and you'll be able to look at an example. And I don't have the author, so I'm going to actually revise the way I want. I'm going to insert in the article, Kid Power, the author. What does the author believe or think? What does the author do? Now, if we think about the text structure, we might put something down like the author believes that, and I can go back to my notes. We wrote down here, using your imagination and creativity, young people can make amazing things. So in the article Kid Power, the author believes that young people who use their imagination and creativity can make amazing things. And then what did the author do after that? What did the author do? Okay, this is the kind of question you see on a reading comprehension test when it says, how did the author support the idea? So think about this. If I was writing this as a test, how did the author support the idea that young people can use their imagination and creativity to make amazing things? How did the author in this article support that idea? Taken, how did the author support that idea?
The author stated some ideas that examples of kids who created amazing things.
Absolutely. The author presented examples of kids who created amazing things. Okay, so we can say the author described, right, because this is description, examples of kids who created amazing things. Okay, the second part of our chart, and I'm just going to stick it up here so that you can see it, include information from each of the sections. So if I go back to what I wrote, I'm going to create a sentence for Kane's example, for Anne's example, and for William's. Okay, so I can put, what can I say about Kane? What can I say about Kane? What can I say about Kane? Turn and talk. One sentence, what can we say about Kane? Okay, now, I'm listening to you. I want to just focus on one of Okay, let's stop for a second. Mariah? Okay, and I like the fact that you're including both, okay? But let's do this. Let's focus on one main idea first, and then we'll talk about a second main idea. So Kane used his imagination to create an arcade out of, what did he create it out of, Carson?
Cardboard boxes.
Cardboard boxes. What can I say about Anne? What can I say about Anne, Sawyer?
Anne used her imagination to create a flashlight that worked with both of his hands.
Okay. Anne used her imagination to create a flashlight that was powered by the warmth of her hand. Okay, what can I say about William? What can I say about William? What did William do, Carter?
You could say William was determined even when his
Okay, and I think that's important. However, I think that's a different main idea. We're just focusing on the first main idea.
He used like his creativity and his imagination to build his windmill from scratch.
Okay, so William used his imagination and creativity to design a windmill to pump water, bless you, and provide electricity for his family. Okay, now that really covers the first main idea, but the article has a second main idea as well, so let's talk about that for a second. The article has a second main idea. What is that? What is the second main idea? Jalen?
It's like to never give up.
Okay, so if we go back to what we wrote in the white space, and guys, this is why it's valuable for you to write in the white space. When designing and inventing things, persevere, keep revising. Okay, the article has a second main idea. When designing and inventing don't give up. Keep revising and persevere. Okay, now I've mentioned this main idea. Do you think it's important for me to continue to provide evidence about it to support it? What do you think, Sawyer? Yes, you ask it like it's a question. Okay, so give me some examples. What about when we talked about Cain? It says he didn't give up. Okay, he kept working to make his arcade better and better. Okay, so we can say when Cain didn't have any customers, please stay focused. What did he do? What did he do when he didn't have any customers? Go ahead, Mariah. He didn't give up. What did he do? Carson?
He kept working until he got customers.
Okay, so he worked to make his arcade better. All right, what about Anne? It says here that Anne, right here, she continues to work on her flashlight to make it brighter. Okay, so we can say Anne continues to improve her invention in order to make the flashlight brighter. And what about William? How did William show perseverance in his story? Go ahead, Sawyer.
Even when she was taught him, it would work and he just give up.
Okay, and it says specifically in here that, remember the smoke, where was that? Okay, it said the first time he tried to get the windmill to power his father's radio, smoke poured out of the radio. But William didn't give up. He kept on reading science books and trying to make his windmill work. Okay, so when his windmill did not work,
Excuse me, teachers, pardon the interruption, but the back and front playground are closed today. Thank you.
when his windmill did not work, comma, William read and revised his design until he was able to light a light bulb. So notice what we've done in writing this summary. We have read the text, divided it into sections. We've identified the text structure. We've determined the important main ideas. Not just one, but two. Being able to recognize that an article has multiple main ideas is a very advanced way of thinking. Okay, that is hinting towards 5th grade level thinking. Okay, and then we wrote our summary by writing the main idea, and we mimicked or we copied the text structure. We copied it. This was written in description. This article was written in description. We wrote our summary using description. Okay, and we focused first on one of the main ideas, and then in the second one. So let's go back and I'm going to read it from the beginning. In the article Kid Power, the author believes that young people who use their imagination and creativity can make amazing things. The author described examples.
For clarification, the intermediate playground is closed. They are spreading mulch under the play equipment, so please make alternate arrangements for recess today if you're on the intermediate playground. If they get finished, we will let you know. Primary playground is open for now, but it will probably be closed today as well when they move to distribute the mulch on that side. So please listen for an announcement that would close that playground quickly if they come around with the equipment. Thank you.
I'm going to go back to the beginning. In the article Kid Power, the author believes that young people who use their imagination and creativity can make amazing things. The author described examples of kids who created amazing things. Kane used his imagination to create an arcade out of cardboard boxes. Anne used her imagination to create a flashlight that was powered by the warmth of her hand. William used his imagination and creativity to design a windmill to pump water and provide electricity for his family. The article has a second main idea. When designing and inventing, don't give up. Keep revising and persevere. And now I'm going to give examples. When Kane didn't have any customers, he worked to make his arcade better. Anne continues to improve her invention in order to make the flashlight brighter. When his windmill did not work, William read and revised his design until he was able to light a light bulb. Okay, so when we write the summary, okay, we have stated the main idea and provided support. We have mimicked the text structure that we identified. Okay, and the other thing I want to make note of, this last thing on your chart, it says keep your opinion separate from the summary. Your opinion really isn't part of this summary. And if you feel compelled to include your opinion, If you feel compelled to include your opinion in your summary, you must keep it separate. So you want to start a new paragraph if you decide to add your opinion to your summary. All right. Does anybody have any questions about writing a summary? Tomorrow I'm going to pass out your post-test to you, and you're going to answer that one question. You're going to read an article, and you are going to write a summary. You will have your chart in your notebook, and you will also have this sample that you will be able to refer to when you're writing your own. All right, please go ahead and make your way back to your seats.